edition of the Just Joshing podcast, or at least for me. For them, it's more early morning. So this is Thanos. He's already been on the show before, and his partner in crime, Stelios. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. We desperately need coffee in 10 minutes wait in here in Greece, but other than that, we're doing fine.
I understand. I too have a unhealthy or healthy love of coffee. We all kind of worship it a little bit, and I totally get that.
Hmm.
So, you guys are at a convention, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, currently we are in the Comic Con in Thessaloniki, Greece. It's maybe the second or third largest comic convention in Greece right now, with a lot of international guests.
That's awesome. Yeah, you told me we were talking off the air. You're looking forward to seeing Brian Azzarello. How about Stelios? Who are you looking forward to meeting if you haven't met them already?
I personally don't know any of the guests that are at the convention because I'm very picky when I read comics.
So define picky. Like, what do you look for?
I look for artists that do everything on paper, like traditionally.
Okay.
Like for me, if James Harren was to come here, I would be like a fangirl on him.
Okay. Fangirl? That's
Yeah.
awesome. That is unbelievably awesome. No, that's cool. So, but not here. So why traditional paper, if you don't mind my asking?
Because this is how I work as well,
Okay.
and I find it like more challenging. I find it more interesting to see like artists put out work and actually do uh, stuff in comics like in different ways, like on paper though. Because now in digitally, like I feel like there's a lot of cheating going on. That's how I feel it. But
Okay.
but equally, they can put sometimes like there can be they can be built equally enough work on both, like tradition and digital art style.
So the big thing about digital, this is the big thing about it. What I've noticed about digital is it can speed up the initial layer, but if you're doing a lot of mask and vectors, you can go really into some details. Now it depends on the comic. To me personally, it depends on the comic. Sometimes it is a shortcut, but sometimes, but again, in the industry, some people have a lot of deadlines and they're going to use whatever tools they have. And to me, at least, um, I understand it. I understand. I like paper too. When I draw, I do. I enjoy the tactile feel of paper to pen. Now, I'm not necessarily great at it. I have fun with it, but I'm not. But
Yeah,
I can understand the enjoyment of it.
yeah,
And I like how you mentioned the deadline thing because one of our most common points of discussion is have you noticed that in the later years most mangas have a tendency to look like the same in terms of style, like the majority of them they have like this super crisp clean line. I'm not talking style wise. I'm talking in the way that they are structured, um, particularly with the tools they are constructed with, if I may say, because everybody's going digital to so they can mass produce panels and stories, so they tend to like have like this super clean, almost inhuman design to them.
To a point, I think it depends on who it is, right? Because
Mhm.
okay, so for example, I am reading two mangas right now. Uh, I'm a big fan of Hiromi Arakawa, who made Full Metal Alchemist. She just did her newest series. Just
Mhm.
literally got it today. And I'm a big fan of Tetsuya Endo because I love Spy X Family. It is the most absurd manga I've read in years. Like it's just
Mhm.
silly stuff. But I got its first like the reprinting in between his arcs, his arc of Spy X Family because that's his current project. They're reprinting his older project, so I'm actually getting to look at where his ideas came from because some of the ideas in Spy X Family are in Tista. Now, some of it's very different, but it's so interesting to see where people start and where they go. And yet, whereas Hiroma she's been doing like manga for decades. Full Metal Alchemist was her hit, so now she's at the opposite end of the spectrum. Whereas now she's just telling the tale she wants to tell, which is what every storyteller wants to get to.
Mm.
So I'm enjoying that. I mean, it's a weird thing because I understand both sides of the argument because again, if you're looking at it strictly from a business perspective, which everybody has to do at some point, right? You're trying to save time sometimes. Sometimes it's about time and the effort, and when you get things to a publisher, there's a lots of like little details to that.
Mm.
Whereas, but if you want to try something different, you want to break. But again, at this moment, because of what you've said, you can actually stand out, which I think is a really interesting concept, right? You're doing something original on paper.
Yeah,
You can play with the structure a little bit, which I think is something. Again, sometimes you have to look around and kind of see what's going on in the industry right now. And one of the things is, if you notice that everything is this crisp, clear style, then the flip side is, okay, how can I make it different, make it stand out, make it apart? Because that's the big challenge today. It's not so much. There's a lot of great books out there. There really is. But how many books legitimately stand out?
Yeah.
yeah. This is exactly. I agree with what you said because there's a really good artist out. I don't want to say his name, but he's really good, very good. Like he's crazy good.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like his art is very general. Like it's something that you will see in many other artists. Like you won't be able to recognize it. It's like it's like when most people say like, oh, your comic or your what you do looks like the X artist or Y artist. Uh, his is like something that's completely bland. It's really hard, but I suppose it depends on what you're doing. Like if you're doing like personally, if I'm about to do a funny story that's more light weight, it's like it's funny and not really serious scenario, then I'll go like more crisp, clean line art, use digital way more than I would do for a more heavier story, like more serious with a serious tone in it. Like I would probably use more the strokes that I can do on paper and the effects I can produce. That's
Okay.
otherwise I wouldn't do in digital.
So here's the you mentioned that this artist is bland. So how old? Do you mind if I ask how old they are? You don't need to tell me who it is, but do you know how old they are?
I think
They're older than us, so
29, 30. I think
I think no, I think they're
even.
yeah, I think they're in their early 30s. So we
Okay.
have I'm 28. He's 26.
So I'm
So,
I'm the old man of the group. I'm 41. So
but if you add them together, we get to 52.
yeah, so exactly. So together you're older than me. I gotcha. No, how do I put this? So this is just from a writer's perspective now. This is more a writer than an artist's perspective, although it's I think true in art as well. Um, when you how I don't know how many years experience that person has over you guys, if they have more experience over you guys or not. That. But here's the thing: the journey is when you start. It's not really about how you stand out right away. If you can get to that point, wonderful. But can you finish a story? Right? Can you finish a project? That is might be the most important early phase of this, right?
Yeah,
Then the second thing is okay. Then you start figuring out okay, you can finish a project. Okay, now you start looking at stuff like the techniques. How can I make my story better, crisper, cleaner, whatever? And then somewhere along the way, you're going to realize that that shit doesn't matter as much as you think it does. And then you're going to come to this ultimate realization. What do I care about? because art is two parts. There is the techniques, skills, the crafting to create whatever story or work, whatever exists. But the other part of it is the artists themselves, because when I write my stories, I'm writing my story, right? Whether no matter what the story is, there's a little bit of me in every story, right? And that's just me being like honest with myself. I think artists to truly get to their best work, you have to kind of get to the point where you can be completely honest and vulnerable to your audience and say, this is who I am. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So it sounds like your friend might be somewhere between the finished project stage, which don't malign that too much because it takes a lot of like there's not a lot of artists that finish projects. I can speak from experience there. Right. So that in itself, like if nothing else, give them kudos for that. But the second part is it sounds like they're looking for their own identity as a creative at this point in time. Right. And that's just and recognize that and but give them props for trying. That's all you can do.
It's no, it's because it's nice that we're a convention because we often discuss that. So we've started from since 2019, since we started going to conventions and having our own stand. Um, we have talked about it and we have thought about it, but basically we keep our whatever we have in our on our stand. It's original content. So 99% we have one fan art of Rick and Morty and one fan art of Dora.
Yeah, sure.
But it's often the discussion like, should we do something more commercial that reaches out to people? Should we do something that we love doing and we enjoy doing it? And time again, we see that okay, maybe the majority of people comes for the fan art and comes for the things that they know, but we see that people really enjoy the thing that we love putting out there, and this love has created a fan base, as small as it is, but for example, yesterday we were really happy to see that people were coming to our stand as soon as they walked in the convention to get the second book or our latest graphic novel, and we and like I said, we have discussed like should we do more fan arts to reach out to a broader audience, but every time we end up in discussion, no, we do the things that we love, and like you said, we put ourselves out there, we put ourselves in the stories and the books that we make. So and this little by little is passing on to whoever reads it and whoever takes interest in the story in our creations.
So okay, so let's just play devil's advocate for a minute.
Mm.
If you don't, all right. Now there are ways to take commercial art and make it your own.
Mm.
Right? There are ways to do that, and there is a benefit to learning how to do that. Now again, it's about your goals ultimately, right? Do you want to work for DC and Marvel? Do you want to work for yourself? Um, do you want to uh, be a commercial artist, or do you want to be a creative artist that makes work that hopefully sells? They're both viable, right? Well, I mean that's that, right? And it sounds like I'm being facetious, but that's what you tried, and you find something that works for you. Like ultimately, the most lucrative path is making your own stuff. It's the most lucrative in the long run, but in the short run, right? You can. There are benefits to it. Like for example, we were talking about like some of the Brian Azzarello off the air, right?
Mm.
If you had an opportunity to do 100 bullets, like a one-shot story, would you do it?
That's tricky because it's like because the question always comes down: do you still g- g- the quickest answer would be no. The long term answer would be yes, if I agree with the fine printing, because usually commercial works always comes down to the fine printing and the
Sure.
letter, yeah, and the small letters, because for example, I've went as someone who writes, I went through the phase like I would really want to to work for Marvel and perhaps write Spider-Man at some point, but then you realize that in the long term, there is minimum impact to what you do for the writer because the next one will come and he will probably undo what you did. So it's a tricky question in that sense because you don't really. I mean, you own what you write, especially like for commercial work, but no one guarantees that it's gonna be a monolith in the canon. If like, okay, this is yours, but maybe it will be undone the moment you walk out the door.
Okay, I'm not trying to talk you into this. I just want to keep going down the rabbit hole just for a little longer. I just want to just point out something. It's not always about the impact you make in the long run, per se, right? You're trying to reach. Let's just say you make a work that a Spider-Man fan would love, because Spider-Man would fit you. I think one of the things about working in commercial work today, it has to fit your identity a little bit, right? It makes no sense for you to do Powerpuff Girls, right? It makes no sense. Now, that would be fun. It might be a lot of fun. And maybe like as a one of, it'd be like, okay, that might be fun to do once. But it doesn't fit your brand,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But maybe Spider-Man does fit your brand. Maybe not Spider-Man, maybe it's the Punisher, or maybe it's Ghost Rider, or maybe it's Doctor Strange, because of what the type of stuff you create, right? You can look at your stuff and it's like, and not in an insulting way, say, well, my stuff is similar to this, right? And again, now that doesn't mean that the stuff let's say you did write commercial work, you'd have to go in there with a certain degree of you check your ego at the door. There's no guarantees that anything you write will, as you say, there's no guarantees anything you create will last. None, right? But if the goal was to build your audience, there might be a time and a place where you might consider that route. Now, I'm not saying it's a guarantee, right? Again, strictly speaking, business wise,
yeah.
it might make sense. This is why I say, am I on something or am I onto something here when I said that?
Um, Yeah, I think it would certainly create some impact and generate a buzz that
Yeah,
okay, and alert people to more independent work. But again, and I think Sage can really have a say in this because he's an artist. Once people um, they make a connection that you are the Spider-Man guy the or the Punisher guy or the Ghost Rider guy, then especially in comics you get to get that reputation. For example, like I think James Harden did it because he did Rumble, and I'm mentioning James Harden because he's stage really loves him. He did Rumble, but this was an international success in many senses, but also many of him know him from his days in BRPD and Hellboy, and he really he still carries this around even though he has done Ultra Mega and I
sure.
think yeah.
Yeah, no, sure, absolutely. Again, it's about what you want at the end of the day, right? Now, you don't want to be the Spider-Man guy. That is totally fair. I'm not right. I don't. What I'm just trying to get across to the audience and to you and a little bit to you guys, although I think you guys have a clear idea what you want, right? There's no there's no harm in choosing a more commercial path.
Mhm.
However, I think what needs to be said about the commercial path is if you don't do your own work, especially today, you haven't got a backlog of your own stuff. At some point, the work from the commercial stuff wears off. You're no longer the new thing. You're no longer the media darling. You're no longer the best thing in comics anymore. You're just another guy. Mark Wade is a rarity in the business, or Brian Azzarello is a rarity in the business, right? And even Brian Azzarello, he's not doing. I don't think he's doing a DC book right now. I could be wrong, right? But I don't think he is. But he's doing some of his own stuff now because it makes sense to. You need to have you. You absolutely need to create your own work. Like there's
Yeah.
no ifs, ands, or buts about it in this industry anymore. If you want to succeed, you have to do something that's you, sooner or later.
Yeah. It's like it's like what I think about when I see fan arts, for example, like when someone is walking by your store, the stands, and they see Spy X Family poster or like the Joker poster or Chainsaw Man, whatever, they see the characters that they know from the show. They don't see you
Yeah,
right away. Like, yeah, they will get the great poster from you, but there's much less. It's like less likely that they will remember you from this poster rather than from
absolutely.
what you have done
Mm.
yourself. And this is what we like kind of want with Dreamlands too, and with our series, because they're coming back for our work,
Yeah,
which is
no,
it's the long game. It's like it doesn't have like high growth, as I like to say. Yeah,
there's going to come a point with you too. If you guys keep your course, you're going to find something that really hits. It'll be like boom,
yeah,
Yeah.
and you'll hit. Now, so really choose what you love because it might be the most unexpected thing that hits. So love it all, or else you might. That's the best piece of advice I can give you. Love everything you're doing because you never. Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle, back in the like early 1900s, hated Holmes at the end. He actually killed Holmes off right when he introduced Moriarty the first time, and then the fans forced him to bring it back. And he did. Like you can look this up. Like you look at like the first half of Holmes, so right before he got the first time, and the second half of Holmes, you can tell Conan Doyle hated it,
Yeah.
but it was paying him so much money that he couldn't walk away from it, right? It's because it was a hit. That was his hit. Most people don't remember Conan Doyle did Lost World. Most people don't remember any of his other works. They remember Holmes. They just do. So, as I said, that's probably the biggest piece of advice. Like, make sure you love what you do because you never know. Like the things you're putting out now, right? You might never know. One day you might wake up Sunday. You might wake up Sunday, and all of a sudden you'll hear a publisher go, "Hey, we love your stuff. We'll give you this." It could happen. It has, right? Then again, or maybe one day you'll wake up. I mean, you'll do like this. Like I'm just throwing this out because I know it's not what you guys do. Maybe you'll come up with this like rom com concept that's just silly, and you just put it out there, and then the next thing you know, boom, and you're like, holy shit, what the hell? I just put it out there. What like that's how things work. Like there's no magic formula to say what's going to be the hit. But if you do strike out on your own, sooner or later you're going to find it. And when you do, it's going to roll. It really will.
But if I may, because I think I think in modern comics we not that much because we've been around I met many people in the industry, but usually writer and artist pairs do come in an oddity nowadays. They're not that common as they used to be, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're trying to do, because you mentioned like maybe we do rom-com, the thing is like we are trying to build something based on this rapport and this energy that we have. And it's like even if we do a rom-com, it would most probably be done in our own way, because and I mean it's not going to be like a conventional rom-com. Most probably someone will die, because I think you've read our comics and you know that death is like a serious part of the story. But it will be done in we basically we're building up on a dynamic, and it's even nice that right now you can see like half of his face, half of my face, and it's like in a symmetry, complementing way.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I no, like I said, it's totally possible. All I'm telling you both, honestly, is just love what you do because you
Mm.
don't know what's going to be the thing that goes boom. And if it does go boom, right, you might have to do it for a long time. So I'm just saying, make sure you love it, right? Because you never know. there are people that just do one thing their whole lives. I'm not saying that's what you guys want, but there are people that just do one artistic thing that just sells, and they just do it their whole lives. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? So, I mean, what I'm hoping is just keep putting yourself out there. You two will find your hit, and you'll be the next one-two punch of the industry, the next Stan Lee and John Romita.
They didn't. Did they end? Yes. No. Stanley had good connections with John Romita. It was with Jack Kirby that he really and like we did have that connection. It's like again, like as you may know, Stanley didn't really want to write comics. And this is like a little bit of our orange. So he wanted to write prose and the next great American novel, and I was a bit like that, mostly focusing on just writing a good novel. And then Stelios came along and he told me like, I want to do comics, but I'm not really sure what to write in the dialogues. So would you like to do it? And then I started doing it. And I was always, for the first year, I was like, okay, yes, I'm gonna stop. Okay, yes, I'm gonna stop. And 4 years, I think 5 years down the line, we're still here. So yeah.
So Thanos, you have a problem. It's like I have a problem. I like putting words in bubbles. That could be like a bio.
Yeah, like this is how it started because like in the early years because we know each other from primary school and
Oh
we
wow.
started yeah and we started working together when I was first living abroad and he would just like cram out like how many pages a week? 8 pages a week?
Yeah,
Eight,
8
eight,
to
eight,
like 11 pages per
eight.
week.
Yeah, and he was like, okay, yeah, I don't know where this is going, but I need dialogue for this. And I'm like, okay, sure.
So you Marvel method your way to meeting each other. That's kind of cool. That's
Yeah.
kind of cool. So Stelios, when did you start drawing comics? If you don't mind my asking.
The first like web comic, but it was very, it was not that good actually. It was pretty bad. I think it was back in 2015 when I started. It was like very much like a hobby,
Yeah.
but then I started like taking it more serious after 2019. Like 2019, we released first Dreamlands, and that's when I found like I wanna work my workflow. Like this is like actual comics. When I started to making like
So dare I ask, this 2019 is when it was like, okay, this is interesting. I like doing this. To like, I love doing this.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, people will say you oddly. Like, I think pencilers have probably one of the hardest jobs in the industry because storytelling wise, the writer does his fair share of deal, but the heavy lifting at some point sooner or later goes to the artist at some point, and
Right.
it's like it takes a lot. I've drawn. I know I have a little bit more now. I'm not going to pretend I'm good. I just have fun, but it's a lot of work to tell a good story with pictures. It really, really is. It takes a lot of trial and error.
Yeah,
Yeah, trust me, he lets me know how much effort he puts into it.
So,
Yeah, like because like I think it's every 2 pages that he sent me. Like this makes no sense. I will turn this into 2 pages. This makes no sense. I will. How do you how do you want to do like 8 panels? I've actually learned, I don't write 8 panels anymore on one page.
he's
I
not
use
writing 8 panels,
yeah.
but he writes like 50 paragraphs for 5 panels, and with like so much detail, like it's impossible. I need to split it. I need to spread it out.
well, so I'm gonna ask this Thanos Brian Bendis. What do you think? Like, do you like his stuff?
Oh yeah, no, but here's the thing. Like you've really opened the door because I really like him. He does he he focuses he does the floating head thing a little more than I like. Brian Bendis is that. Do you remember the Defenders comic that I bought you? The one that has
Yeah,
like 16 panels in one page. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we have discussed this. Like, yeah, I really like it. And I like his development, and I think he writes very well. But sometimes he focuses a little too much on the dialogue
Yes, he
than
does.
than comics should.
So Bendis is the like when you told me the 50 panel thing, that's who I first immediately thought of was Brian Bendis because um, he has some of the best dialogue in the business. Honestly, like even today, he's still up there. I don't know if he's the best anymore, but he's definitely still up there. But sometimes, man, he just goes off. My favorite Bendis book, though, so my favorite Bendis book of all time is Scarlet. I enjoyed Scarlet a lot.
Yeah.
Right, I enjoyed Scarlet a lot. My least, and the other one that's really good, Ultimate, obviously, is his Ultimate. His first 50 issues or so of Ultimate Spider-Man is really good, even if they are kind of like retellings in some ways. He took Spider-Man in some interesting directions, and I liked it. That's a, kind of is the modern Spider-Man guy now. So, but I also see why people don't like him. I did not like his Legion of Superheroes book. I just did not. I just did not like it. I thought he got a little too lost in the characters.
Yeah, so I can tell you why, because like you said, because we are, I was born in 1995, he was born in 1997, and the thing is, like, we both grew up when Spectacular Spider-Man by Bendis was coming out. So for me, it was a really major influence on how, right, because he really got that early 2000 teenage vibe, and it was one of the comics that I started seriously reading when I first started writing. But here's what happened. So I used to have the whole floating head kind of like situation in our comic, but then Stelios was like, okay, I will never ever do the same panel in the same page. So there might be a character speaking consecutively for 3 panels, but it will not be in the same angle. It will not be in the same perspective. And this is how we broke the how we came to understand a little bit each other better, because he was like, I will never have like main character just sitting like this for one panel, and because you have so much to say, he will be sitting like this for the next panel. He'll be like, one shot will be here, the other one will be like from the side, from up. Because and of course that changed the dynamic and the shape of the panel, and how much words you can put into it. So this is how why the Bendis formula never really took off with me, unfortunately.
Stelios, good job. Good job.
Thanks.
Then so here's the thing, like in prose, when I do dialogue, I always have the characters doing something, even if you're just getting a character tick. Sometimes it's just a little character tick. Sometimes it's something as simple as maybe they're eating, or maybe they're walking, or maybe it's something like an action, and the action impacts either the character or the story you're in, because that's comics are visual, especially comics are visual. And I mean, I think the worst nightmare I've ever seen in terms of like the visuals and the words, like how to make this work. Brian Hitch is one of the best artists of the modern generation. He's great. But look at his Ultimate scripts. Have you ever seen the Ultimate scripts he's had to work with to try to figure out how it all worked? It's like he would do Mark Miller's Ultimates. He would draw it, right? And oh man, I like that guy did some mental gymnastics to make some of that work. Some of that, right? Because it's like, okay, so who's talking where? Like he'd look at the scripts, like who's talking where? Where do I think this is gonna go? And it's just like, right? And because again, the temptation in writing in comics is to always go with dialogue, and dialogue's important. I don't think dialogue isn't something that shouldn't be there, but you have visual cues with your illustrator. If he can do it or she can do it, right? Why not let them tell that story? It saves time a little bit. Now, again, there are some character exceptions. Maybe you want to get a specific character. Again, this is just me. This is really, really like toolbox stuff, right? This is toolbox stuff. But where I'm at in telling stories now is, what's the important thing in the story we're going to tell? Because if you have that nailed down, you can figure out what you can show the audience and what you can hide from them, and they're not going to be mad at you, right? And when you reveal it, it's like, I get it. You're a genius. I get it. you cheating motherfuckers, and throws the thing and throws the book across the thing, right? So, um, but yeah, I mean, I say this like that was the only thing. Like Bendis at his best does some of the most intricate character work I've ever seen in comics. He can do a wonderful job with that. But at his worst, sometimes I feel like you're getting lost here a little bit, right? And then Stelios is like, I can kind of see that both ways, maybe, right? But I do think he is definitely somebody everybody should read because I think the impact he had, especially in the early 2000s, was phenomenal.
Yeah. It's but the thing is, it's like you said, you have to think it both in terms of storytelling, but also in terms of pacing for the book. Because if you have a strict limit and say that you want to make it, let's say 24 to 28 pages, you have to make sure that you get the message across. And I think this is what forces people to turn to dialogue. And I don't know. I remember it's nice that we brought it up because I remember seeing a picture on Facebook a couple of days ago. It was about a comic,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like a penguin with an atomic explosion in the background, and he had like a speech bubble. He's like, okay, so here's what about it. The information through comics comes primarily through dialogue, and so it doesn't really matter what you put, what the visual is. I'm like, not really, really, like, of course you can. It would be interesting, and I'm pretty sure someone has done it to create a dialogue and visual things that are completely irrelevant and mismatched, just to create like an interesting antithesis story. But when they come together and they come in synergy and they have some like room to grow and breathe, they can do amazing things. This is
So I think okay, it depends. Okay, again, this all comes down to the story you want to tell.
mm,
A great example, in my opinion, of there's a there's an old school mystery style comic, like a juvenile one called Five Weapons. It's about a detective, like a kid detective, solving, going to this like assassin school and figuring out who's doing what, when, where, how. Jimmy Robinson writes it and illustrates it. Like Jimmy's a super
yeah,
talented guy. What I really love about like what he did in that book though is he would put visual clues in every single one of the books, so you can actually figure out what's going on before the big reveal in the next issue, which is very much like the very like young juvenile books I read as a kid, right? So when you have that happen, when you're reading, um, when you're reading that kind of book, when you're doing that kind of thing, right? The visuals are super important. Now, sometimes that where the dialogue can really help is if there's something going on that the information doesn't fully make sense with what you're seeing visually. So I love Grant Morrison. Like Grant Morrison's a great comic writer, but Final Crisis had a little too much visual and not enough explanation of what was going on. Just too, it was, he went too far the way of letting the audience figure it out. A little dialogue here, a little dialogue there would have helped a lot, right? But you can go both ways on that. I think visually speaking, I think visual is the best way to you can tell a great story just with visuals. I think where dialogue really enhances the story is you get the beats of the characters. You can comics play with time a lot, the moment. So comics create time, deal with time. Then dialogue can really show that passage amazingly well,
mm,
right? Even like images can do it themselves, like but a lot of the image tricks involve the gutters, right? The stuff between the moments. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it works.
it is like a show don't tell. You
Hmm.
gotta use
Oh
show
yeah,
don't tell a lot. And
that's
yeah, the magic happens between panels. That's what where the magic happens actually in comics. And I think this is how like we did Dreamlands,
yeah.
and I believe like now that the second is out, if you read if you read the second and you go back to the first, it's completely different experience because I have put so many details and little bits of information that now with context it makes even more sense.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's the way it should be. That's the way it sometimes that's cool. You can go back and read the comic and see all the little steps, all the little tools
Mm.
Yeah,
perfectly, right? And that's an incredible thing if done well. Like it can be. So again, I mentioned Five Weapons. It's a good example of this. I like it when sometimes you look at a mini series, like you can look back at the first issue, like Watchmen, for example. I love Watchmen
Yeah.
in terms of so the very first panel you see the comedian kind of falling to his doom, right? And he looks like a traditional hero in peril. So when you first read it, it's like, oh, this feels like something I've seen before. And then you find out who the comedian is about halfway through the series, and you're like, oh, he's a fucking monster. So this guy is nothing like I imagined. Then you get to the end of the book when Ozymandias is reveals himself to be the whole villain of it all. And I go back to that first panel after reading Ozymandias, and I realize why the comedian had the look he had. It was because he realized that he was right, and
Mm.
that was his last and final thought. But to get that, you had to read the whole rest of that series to fully see that point. But it was done so well. It's one of the like the best examples of that I've ever seen.
yeah,
Mm.
I,
It's,
I'm a comic junkie, as you can tell, Stelios. I've been reading for a very long time, so I love a good story, and I love it in all forms. And I think it's good to look at what works. Like I said, Alan Moore is definitely from the modern era, the man. Like, or I guess not the modern era anymore. He's actually like a Silver Age writer now at this point.
yeah, it's and the thing is, you can even feel like for me, Watchmen not didn't do it that much. I realized it later on, but V for Vendetta did, especially like how it all tied together at the
Mhm.
end, and you get like this really like satisfying feeling that yes, it is just it's some of it can be like really cheesy because I remember the one with do you remember in V when the detective was trying to figure out how V would do everything, and he sees the shadow of the met of the tube, and he's like they are forming the V, and he's like he realizes where he's hiding,
Yeah,
and I think this might be a little. Things like it might be a little bit too random, but other than that, it just like again it tied so well
yeah.
on that on every possible structural level.
So like just remember, like when you're telling a story, you're trying to make the audience find a picture of what you're seeing perfectly, right? Right. You want them to see what you see to some degree, but you also want them to feel something, right? So a lot of what we're doing, what a lot of what we do as creatives is we play with people's expectations because
Mm.
people have a sense of how a story goes, right? Always. But how we execute a story can be very, very different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think is because you have like the basic instincts and the seven plots and how everything goes. I think because we were watching which animation was it that we were watching a couple of days ago, Farzam.
Farzar.
Farzar. Yeah, so we were watching Farzar, and Farzar has this like whole um adult swim late 20 early 2020 vibe that's really unexpected but sometimes in a profane way that again you're not really expecting how it will go, but even when it goes the other way than you expect it, it's like, okay, yeah, I kind of saw it coming, and it's not really that stimulating anymore.
Well, it's about, see, when you're creative, you can look at something and go, okay, I think I know where this goes,
Mm.
right? Now, can you do it in a way you're always going to tell the audience where you're going, whether you realize it or not. You're going to always tell them. Now, as a creative, you'll see the tricks a little bit quicker than somebody else. I'll give you a good example of this, like for me personally. So this ages me because I don't watch much TV lately, and I'm uncool. But Dark Knight Rises, right?
Mm.
I knew 20 minutes into the movie how the movie was going to end. The only thing I really didn't know was which girl he ended up with. I knew.
Mm.
I knew because they gave it away too soon. They gave it away very, very, very quickly. And it was just like, this is where you're going. This is how it's ending. Now, there's some elaborate stuff in the movie, right? And the part, like, there's like, because I knew how it was going to end, I wasn't surprised to see him get broken and see him come back to fight the big bad guy. Now, I am an idiot. And this is where I felt like really bad was I did not realize that Talia was right in front of my face the whole freaking time. And looking
Mm.
back, I'm like, should have seen it. But the whole point is the same. You kind of know what to expect. That's fine. You can know. The trick is, can you, okay, you know the good guy's gonna win at the end. But going back to Star Wars, did you think that the bad guy at the time was actually the good guy's dad? At the time, that was a huge twist, right? Even though it went down this, like, it's a classic story.
Mm.
It is a classic story in a lot of ways. It's the fact that, okay, now I'm going to subvert the reader's expectations. You expect a mustache twirling villain and the hero to just be the hero. The mustache twirling villain is your dad. Holy shit. Very different story, right? And every story you watch, is the twist compelling enough that they'll come along with you for the ride? Because if the twist is interesting, you can know where it goes, but it's the journey getting there.
Mm.
Made you think there, I think.
Yeah. No, it's like this is storytelling 101, but you always have to keep this in mind. You always have to like put this thing in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it's like you said, but because the thing is, you have to make the twist to have some impact. Because if you just go for like cheap, not cheap, shallow and like small stimuli of let's say having the audience reacting, then you just like really subverting the expectation in a minor level. And you don't, and when the big twist sinks, you don't really get it.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And a lot of people try to get too cute and try to do like this expectation. What's the last thing people will expect here? Let's
Mm.
just go that way. That's not always the correct way. Sometimes it's like, okay, give them what they want, give them what they expect. Just don't do it in a way that they expect it, right? And
Yeah.
that, and if you do that, you can, like, I think it's better, especially when you start, play play into the expectations. Don't try and be clever, right? Yeah, I'll give you exactly what you want. I'll just do it in a way you don't expect it. I'm going to go there. I am going to do exactly the way you expect it to.
Yeah, because
Yeah, but actually, it's like you don't really want to fall into the all heists movies, heist scripts scenario, because you know, like uh, what heist movies like about, like doing a heist, like a group of people, right? That want to steal something from a place, but like at the end we learn, like you have the end, the beginning and the end, but between that you can make or like literally anything. You can make absolutely anything, and it
Absolutely.
won't even matter the ending. Actually, you can say like it was a double cross. You can say that your plan was my plan. It was. You can say like I did this and did that. The key fell like through the floor and stuff like that. But the ultimately the what we expect as viewers or readers, we expect like the group to take the object, the stuff they're stealing, right?
Yeah,
Like you can make a bunch of twists and turns and like knots, but if the result and the end is like what you would expect, I don't find any point in making all those twists, right? I don't find it that exciting.
Okay, so let's talk the heist. Let's talk the heist because I think see to me, I don't care if they get away with it or not. I don't care. You know what I care about? How much shit goes wrong in the moment. Because see, that's the entertaining part. It's not whether they steal it or not. Who cares?
Yeah,
Hell, you can, heck, you know what? There's only two ways a heist can go. Either they steal it or they get caught.
yeah,
Those are the only two expectations they have. So the question then is this. Again, what's the story you're going to tell here? For example, the way you do it, they steal the item. Okay, what can possibly go wrong in your head, and how do they get away with it anyway? Right? Those are the two questions you got to answer. Now, you can do that, and you have a clean getaway. Now, personal note, I hate Ocean's 11. The modern Ocean's 11, 12, 13, like whatever, fuck, Oceans. I hate that for that reason because everybody walks away scot free. Do you know what's more? Do you know what's more interesting? Is if not all of them do it. What if someone gets caught? What
yeah,
if, what if someone dies? Right? Suddenly, it's a much more interesting story. Now, maybe they get the item at the end. Is it worth it now? That's a different question, right?
yeah.
The heist almost doesn't matter in of itself. One of my favorite video games is essentially a heist game disguised as an RPG, and that's the Persona 5. It's a heist game. That's what it is. You sneak around and you try to steal shit. That's what you do, right? But that story is in odd ways a redemption story, right? He's stealing to get back what he was taken from him. So there's a bit of a revenge aspect to it. Again, you can do a lot in a heist. The two expectations are, okay, he gets away with it. Again, shit goes wrong. That a guaranteed in a heist. Like, no matter which way it goes, shit's gonna go wrong. So if he gets away with it, if they get away with it, do they all get away with it? Do some of them die? Do some of them get caught? Like you have a lot of options, and they all can be interesting. But again, if the story is about the character stealing something, then the item almost doesn't matter, other than why are they after it. That's all they care about. Um, they don't care about any other reason, and they shouldn't, right? Right? They really shouldn't. What they should care about, what you should care about, and what everybody should care about, right, is okay. What's going to go wrong, and what are they going to do about it? Because that's the real interesting part. The rest of it does not matter, and that's the secret to a good heist story. Now, secret to a bad heist story, extension Ocean's 11, 12.
and to go punish. And we're still live. So we're gonna just keep talking, just so we so and the thing is, like, I was thinking about Helldivers, which is a comic that we make, and the key is that basically, in the end, everyone will die. And when we start the story, but this is like the prerequisite of the story, that in the end, everyone has to die, no matter what happens. Like the two main characters have to die. So um, when we're starting the story, this is what we know, that at the end, whether things go good, bad, or just any or just sideways, they will die, and we have to figure out how to do that. And this is where the twist gets, because like you said, in the heist, it would be you can either have you can either get the thing or you will get caught. But and again, in an adventure film, you can either do what you, when you're sent on a mission, you can do what you are asked or fail, but you have to die. So the trick is how are they going to die. Other than that, it's when it comes to stories, it's really important to make sure that the stakes are risen in a believable way, and for people, so people can actually they can have a meaning for those who read them, for those who see, for those who watch them. I think that's it. And I'll put it on mute for a second.
Hey guys, sorry about that.
Yeah.
It's all good. Just muted for a second. Yeah, we're just like talking about so in a comic, oh, now screens are reversed. So in a comic that we're making, yeah, it's called Helldivers, and what we know from the beginning is that the two main characters, they have to die no matter what. Like either whether the mission goes right, the mission goes wrong, in the end they will die. And this is like the twist. You will have to keep reading. Like, what if everything goes right? How would they die? Because you can die like in every goofy or violent or gruesome way, or you can just like die trying to complete the mission. And because we were
Yeah.
talking about twists, this is the thing.
So I mean, the worst way to do it at that point is if they just suddenly just spontaneously combust, because that would be like the worst thing ever,
Well,
right? So that'd be the worst thing. The best thing would be if
goddamn Jet. So, what's the best thing? How would they die? So, wait.
8 παραδέκα, 9 παραδέκα είναι.
No,
Jeez.
it's time. Let's confirm.
Πάμε όξι για καφέ θα κάνουμε.
Well, at least he's trying. Μαλάκα, είναι ξημιός.
It's funny. I got this computer to replace this recurring problem, but apparently this computer's got the issues too. I don't know what's going on.
Did you get a blue screen of death?
I got a locked, like it locked, and I'm not sure why it's locking. So I don't know. So we'll finish this real soon here because I know you guys got a convention to go to. So the only thing about, like I said before I walked away, was you got to make sure that that it's not cheesy, but you can set up some interesting like little things, like again at the beginning, and if you do it right, if you do it absolutely right, they will actually, how do I put this? People will be like, that's okay. One of my favorite like death. This ages me big time. Like this is the Highlander the series, like back in like the mid '90s. Like I'm old. That's the way it is. But the best death I've ever seen on television was in that show, and that was Tessa, because the way they did that was real. It felt very, very real, because she didn't die because of some bad guy or some great thing. She was rescued. That was the best part about it. But she just was going home, and a mugger came out of nowhere, and suddenly, boom, right? And that was it. It felt real. It felt like legit, like this could happen. And because this could happen, it did. And suddenly it changed everything forever. So you can do it. It's just, you gotta be very
Have to be, yeah. You have to make sure that it resonates.
yeah. To make sure it resonates and that it's feasible. You can't just do something like a giant anvil falling from the sky and killing your character. I mean, that would like people would be looking at you like, what are you doing? And Stelios is laughing there, right? Just you could just see it's like, yay, we win, bonk, right? But it can't be that unless you're going for like a comedic effect. But that's going to be a very short story. You have to make sure that no matter what, the gravity fits the story you're telling. Again, this ultimately comes back to the same thing. What is the story you're trying to tell?
Yeah.
So I got 2 questions and we'll wrap this bad boy up because you guys got a convention to go to here. So Stelios, you said you're picky with comics. Are you picky with other forms of art as well?
Yes and no. Because I don't know if you know the artist ex writer one who made who is the writer of One Punch Man. If you know him,
I know of him. Yes.
you know the duels he has done, like the original webcomic series. I I read the original webcomic series first, and then I read Murata's redo, I guess, of the comic, of the manga. And I found the original from one way more entertaining and fun, in terms of both art style and writing, because it actually matched the tone, and the art style matched together perfectly when like Murata is going a little bit too serious with his style. So I guess I'm kind of picky. I really want to find the perfect, I guess, art style and story together. It's actually the one is commenting the other. Uh, like
No, sure.
in Rumble, for example, I liked Rumble, James Hunt's Rumble, the first part of the story, but I liked the story as well. But when it switched, the main artist switched, it changed. It lost that kind of feeling that James Hunt had put into the story. It actually like felt like it had a different vibe into it. Like it was completely different now.
It happens. It depends on how long it is between the original and the redo too, because
Yeah,
you're not the same artist,
yeah,
right? So when you do a story, when you're starting, that's when you're at your most passionate about your story. Now, you can keep that passion for a sustained point of time, but your voice, I don't know if the art's right, sorry, but your style, your what you care about,
Yeah.
changes over time. And as it changes, you can go back to a story and retell it, but it won't be the same. It never can be. It's a dangerous thing to do because there's, on one hand, you can do some things definitely to make a story better because you know more, but do you care more? That's a trickier question.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
all right, gentlemen, you got to start. Is it on now?
Yes, it is currently on. I think it has another. We're halfway through. It has another 15 days.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called No. There are no heroes, or just no heroes.
Okay.
It's an RPG comic, and by that we mean that we, the idea started as a possible RPG game for computer, but then it developed as we started talking. We thought that it would be best to lay it out as comic. So, to put it shortly, it's a fighter, a wizard, and a misguiding spirit. They're on the Nameless Isle, which is a mystery island, and they have to defeat a series of bosses so they can climb the tower and uh, conquer the island while learning how to be heroes, quote unquote, through
Gotcha.
small choices. Yeah,
I gotcha. So do you have a link to it?
yeah, of course.
Send it to me
Yeah, give me a
because I'm a
second.
trained professional or something like that.
I mean, it's 5 now, isn't it? There. So
It
it's
is actually midnight here now. It's midnight.
so yeah. There's absolutely no problem with that.
Second. Did you
Yeah.
private chat this to me or did you
No, because we're also professionals. I had to Google it and yeah, there you go.
where is it? Private chat?
Yeah, private check.
Perfect. Take a look here.
Yep.
I like RPG fantasy comics. This is pretty cool. And you made your goal already. Congrats, guys.
Thank you.
I mean,
Da-da-da-da. So I'm going to do this because I am a trained professional. I know what I'm doing. They gave me an award for this once upon a time. They truly did. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is No Heroes Issue 1 RPG fantasy comic courtesy of Thanos and Stelios, the dynamic duo over there. So, Stelios, it was a nice to meet you. I hope this was entertaining for you too.
yes, likewise.
Yes. So, before we wrap this up completely, is there any other web page or anything that you want people to refer to right now?
I think our Instagram page should be
Okay. All right.
it is the flagship. And no, actually, no. Let us be even more professional and actually promote our Twitter page, which
Okay.
has a tendency of coming back from the dead every now and then.
That's all right. So they have a Twitter that's semi-dead, dead-ish. Actually, considering what you guys have talked about, that's actually appropriate for the show.
Yeah.
So, death and coming back. So, here we go. Here, boom, 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 boom. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to go like this, and then we're going to go like this. Okay, there we go.
Thank you so much.
No problem. I'm going to have you, and because I'm such a professional, I'm going to have you Facebook me all this stuff, DM
Oh
me
yeah.
all this stuff when it's over. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Loudmouse group, right? And this is their Instagram. You want to see what the amazing stuff they're doing there. They have a Twitter that's semi-dead, which comes back to life from time to time. And finally, most importantly, check out their Kickstarter right now. It's available now. I may talk to the boss of the podcast. Maybe I'm bringing this episode up a little sooner than advertised. We'll see. No promises. I mean, I know the boss is a bit of an asshole, but we'll see what we can do there. And beyond all that, folks, I got two things left to advertise here. First off, is my Patreon page. So I am prepping to go on the road, and I've already started making episodes for the future now. $5 gets you access to all that content before anybody else sees it. If you want to support the podcast in any way, this is one of the best ways to do it. Check out my Patreon right now. And finally, if you want me to advertise your work or yourselves, definitely check out my advertising services, which you can see right here. Again, trained professional here, ladies and gentlemen. I almost know what I'm doing. If you're watching this, you're laughing your ass off. You're listening to this, you're like, what the hell is he talking about? That's okay. Thanos, Stelios, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time and your support.
Yeah, and beyond all that, folks, that'll do it for this episode. Just joshing. I got a fun guest on Sunday morning. Rue Volley joins the show, and it's going to be great. And I do a drink and draw with Marcia Wade on Monday. It's going to be phenomenal. But for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Stay inspired. Keep shining in the dark. And I'll see you guys next time.